Everyone, from me, Brent Graham of goodforthegame.co.za. Time for the handicap rugby chat that matters. If our pre-show chat is anything to go by, I'm a little bit worried about my Wi-Fi. It's not behaving very well at the moment. I've tried my 3G. It hasn't been much better. We do have another guest joining, so in the event that I have to drop off, the two of them can probably just chat. But let's welcome the man in studio at the moment, and that's the Crow Tips, Chris Rowe. Chris, good to have you on, mate. How are things going your side? You're busy, I'm sure?
Yeah, all good. Settling back into my job in London. Yeah, it's going well. It's getting busier now, but yeah, all good. Punting's a bit suspect, but yeah, still obviously getting involved in rugby this year and enjoying it. So yeah, looking forward to discussing this weekend's games for sure.
Yeah, I must say, I haven't been watching as much rugby as normal, I must say. And I'm enjoying some of the other sports. I can't wait for the Masters golf that's coming up. And I really enjoyed the live golf in South Africa last week, which I'm quite surprised about. Just a comment, I was absolutely amazed my son and his friends how into the live golf they were, which tells me one thing. First of all, brilliantly marketed, because it was a big success in South Africa. But the second thing is, I think the format the youngsters prefer. It's quick, it's over within a few hours. You don't have the situation of some guys ahead of others and that in terms of holes. So anyway, that's enough about live golf. Let's welcome Nathan to the show. Nathan, how are you doing there in New Zealand, mate?
Good, thank you. Yeah, I timed it perfectly. I'm actually enjoying other sports at the moment as well, but only because I'm an Arsenal fan. So I've been waiting. Yes. I've been waiting 20 years to enjoy other sports. So it's quite funny because my son's just turned 5 and he's all of a sudden become kind of mad on sport, and he knows all the teams and what's the uniforms and stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, he's jumping on the Arsenal bandwagon. Like just at the perfectly right time.
It's a bit like the Man City fans or the Man United fans for many years. But when they were growing up, the team were winning, and then they became fans, and you kind of just stuck there after that, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's great. I always felt a bit guilty, Nathan, with my son and that, because I used to bet these days. Well, over the last few years, I mainly bet rugby, but I used to bet on pretty much anything. So I never really. I had a bit of a team that I supported, Watford, believe it or not, when I was a teen, and that's probably because they made the FA Cup final in '84. But I always felt bad because my kids, I was supporting a different team each week, and because of that, they never really got that identity. That like dad supports Arsenal, I'm going to support Arsenal. So back on it years later, I always felt a little bit guilty because everybody else had a team, and my kid was like, "Geez, what's the spread?" It's like crazy stuff. Chris, quick one for you, mate. Well, who do you support in the English Premier League, if anybody?
Liverpool. Liverpool since the 90s. Yeah, when they were supposed to be the hot team, but they never came around from their glory days, and took ages until they finally. Well, they were winning the odd stuff, right? They've always been there and thereabouts.
Champions League.
I'm Liverpool.
As a bit of a neutral over the years, I've got to say that the two teams I always pull for when it comes to the English Premier League, I'll either pull for Liverpool or I'll pull for Arsenal. I'm just not a Manchester City fan, and I had too many Manchester United friends growing up, so I love it when they do badly. And for me, I was always pulling for one of the two, so I'm going to be pretty happy this season let me not curse it. If Arsenal win the league. But anyways, gents, let's get into a little bit of rugby now. We've got a full house of Super Rugby action, of course. I missed the early lines, Nathan, but am I right in saying this has been a week where there really hasn't been a lot of dramatic movement in the betting?
Not too much. Yeah, I think it's been relatively static. This one has moved. I think it might have opened at 17.5.
Okay.
I think that sounds right. Yeah, so a little bit of movement on this one.
Excellent. Yeah, I caught it. Well, when I say I caught it, the first I saw it was probably on the way down already. Was Monday night. Had been out for about 12 hours already at 15.5. So edged in slightly from there. So we got Pacifica here, who've been pretty much the whipping boys of the tournament so far. They're plus 14.5 against the Highlanders and a points line of 59.5. I think this game taking place in North Harbour. What are your views on the opener, Nathan?
I mean, I'm going to be staying out of this one because just purely from a numbers perspective, it favours Moana. But I one of the things I don't do is when I kind of analyze things from a results perspective, like I can see that I've been wrong consistently on Moana, and after a while, like what I'll do is just kind of red flag a team and just say, look, I'm not going to go back in there like until I can see something that tells me that either they've been unlucky or maybe that, you know, the way that they're rated is realigning with how they're actually playing. But like until that point, like I know that I'm just wrong on them, and so, you know, I'd rather just stay off until I see sort of signs of life. But I understand why people would have backed them in this spot, because the Highlanders have rested quite a few, or maybe not necessarily rested because some of them are on the bench, but they've got a rookie halfback, a number 10 who, yeah, don't particularly rate, and Tavatava Nawai kind of covering off the bench. So yeah, it's kind of a slightly odd looking Highlanders team. And you know, like if this was last year, you'd be all over Moana, but it's not last year, that's for sure. So yeah, for me, I'm just gonna stay off this one.
Yeah, Chris, I don't know how much you've looked at Super Rugby, but bringing you in here, I mean, I must say last week I didn't really watch much of the games, but I had Moana, a small bet on Moana. I think it was plus 25.5 or plus 26.5 against Crusaders. And at halftime, they were 17-14 down, I think it was. And I was thinking, well, I'm very much in this, but they got blown away in the end. Have you got any views on this opener?
Yeah, I'm the same. These are two very difficult teams to actually back, or like follow and back form-wise, because they're often all over the place. But honestly, I can see why it's come in. I capped this a bit lower myself. Like before, like when I looked at the teams, I still even think at 14 this is high. I say this is not a confident game at all, because these are two teams that are even battle to back any time. But in this situation, I'm still going to say if you are going to play the cap, Pacific is probably the play. Like Nathan was saying, there are changes there with the Landers. Can you trust them? They're so inconsistent. Like in this game tomorrow, I think the plus 14, even the plus 14 is all right. I think I got it like highest at about 10. So yeah, I think Pacific is the team to back here, but there's no confidence here. Like I was also hoping for a slightly lower points line. This line's been beaten 3 of the last 5 times, so it'd be hard for me to go unders on this game as well. So I'm sure they're going to throw it around. But also with the changes on both sides, actually, this could end up being scrappy. So I'm not going to punt the overs here, even though that's like normally my strategy. But yeah, probably in this situation, the teams and where we are in the season and everything, probably the plus 14 is the right bet here. But that's a very low confidence play.
Yeah, I think, and I pretty much agree with everything you've said, and I think that we've seen Moana not cover the big handicaps in the last 3 games in a row or whatever it's been, and end up getting humped. If you, it's sort of once bitten, twice shy, right? But it's sort of 3 times bitten. I think if you, as a better, if you win on Moana and they lost this game by 25, you'll absolutely just kick yourself. You'll be thinking, what was I thinking? Because you've seen this movie 3 weeks in a row. And so I get that, sometimes you kind of have to be brave and hold your nose a little bit for certain types of bets, and this could be one of those. But for me, it's just like, why would I take that chance again? When there's other plays, I think that I would like more. I can see we've lost Brent.
Yeah, you said that might actually happen. I'm actually trying to see if I actually have access to the back end here. I did previously. So we've done that game, yeah? Yep. Next game is Brumbies, yeah? Okay, yeah, he's got we can carry on because I do have access here. So obviously, it's Brumbies at home tomorrow as well against the Tars. Do I need to add him back? Let me add him back. Oh no, he's gone again.
What? Oh, sorry. Every time you add me, I'm removing me because I forgot that you had, and I saw you brought the thing up. In fact, what happened to me, it wasn't as bad as it looked. Yes, my Wi-Fi was giving me trouble, but what happened earlier, I changed connection, so I took off the automatically reconnect. So now when I connect to me, normally in the past I get reconnected for a couple of seconds, I come back. This time I reconnected and nothing happened. And then when I went in, I realized that it wasn't reconnecting automatically. But yeah, unfortunately, it looks like it might be a night where it might be a little bit frustrating for me. So carry on, Chris, with your chat on this game. I'll sort of come join in from the next one.
No, I was just saying, obviously, this is the other game tomorrow, Australian derby. And obviously, Brumbies have been flying high and doing super well, and the Tars are just so difficult to call at the moment. They're all over the place. They have amazing games in them, but they can also just, go disappear. I was actually thinking when I was looking at this game today, I mean, in the old days, this was a classic under 50 points, Tars plus 12 bet builder, slap it in an accumulator, and it was almost a banker. But these days, the Australian derbies look a lot different to the eye and do play out differently. But yeah, I mean, the Brumbies are good. But I actually had this a little bit lower on the cap for the Tars. I thought I was probably more around 10. But I can see why, obviously, Brumbies are where they are. And if the Tars brain farts, I mean, Brumbies could pull away. But the Tars do like to put up a good fight against the Brumbies. So, like, in terms of this game, I think the weather's good. I think the weather's actually quite good across the park, except Perth on Saturday. But I was actually quite looking at the Tars points here, possibly. Haven't pulled the trigger or confidently there, but I think the Tars could contribute here, be up for this game essentially, and this game could. I mean, 56 is quite high for Australian derby, but obviously last couple of years it's been quite high. They have been scoring points, but I'm going to look at points, but not confident at the moment. What are you thinking, Nathan?
Yeah, I like the Brumbies here. I think that the only thing that's kind of suppressing this line and stopping it from being, something much higher is probably the whole Aussie derby thing. I mean, the truth is, if the team wasn't wearing a light blue jersey and called the Waratahs, if they were somebody else and there wasn't that kind of derby narrative, you'd be looking at it and going, these are two teams at completely opposite ends of the table almost. Like the Waratahs just they aren't good. I think it's interesting because they've obviously they're missing a lot of firepower with Suali'i, but it's not just that. There's some, they just seem down so much on where they were last year. And they're missing a few in the front row and Langy Gleeson and all this sort of thing. But the other thing that's really interesting to me is if let's say Max Jorgensen was ruled out, what do you think the line in this would be?
14, what's in a 12?
Yeah.
A few points higher. 14, 15.
I agree. And the thing is that's crazy though, because I don't think any winger should be able to influence the line by that much, but it does because it shows how reliant the Waratahs are on Jorgensen to do something. And that's not a good sign. I don't think any team should really be highly dependent on their winger to kind of get them out of trouble. So I think, as I said, if it wasn't the light blue jersey, you'd be looking at this and saying there's a 20-point difference between these teams almost. So I think there's that. And I think the other thing with the Brumbies is that they're still suffering from this kind of perception problem that they're down on where they were last year, and I think there is some truth to that. But the question I'm asking myself is what if Declan Meredith is actually really good, and he's showing signs of actually maybe being good, and I think the thing is that kind of looked at it and thought, they're missing Lolesio. He could easily be better than Lolesio. I think we're at this point where
I think he is.
That's the question that I'm asking myself, and I think a lot of people would be saying what you're saying, that he is, and if he is good, if he does have a touch of the Stephen Larkham about him, maybe which he kind of seems to, then they're actually in a pretty good spot because they're still strong across the park. They've got a lot of emerging talents coming through. I think Charlie Cowell is going to be good. I think Pritchard might actually turn out to be a good player as well. So, So, I mean, all it really takes, I said, is for Meredith to actually turn out to be good, because he was a bit of an unheralded kind of name coming in. I'm sure people looked at the team sheet in week one and said, the Brumbies aren't going to be good this year. I think we all did, to some extent.
Yeah.
And what if those things are not true? If they're not true, then the Brumbies, they've already, they've beaten the Chiefs, beaten the Blues. They just seem like they are the same Brumbies team that we've sort of come to know over the last few years. And if anything, the Waratahs are worse. So as I said, if there wasn't the derby narrative, I think there's a 20-point gap between these teams.
Yeah, and like you said, Kate, this last year, I think they did win last year, the Tars, but you're right. And that's what I was saying is I'm not backing the Tars because they just are too inconsistent, and I'm using I'm going back to the old derbies and when these games were much tighter. But I totally agree. The Brumbies are, like you said, like when I looked at them in preseason, there's a surprise package to me, and I'm still waiting for the bubble to kind of burst in a way. But I mean, like you say, I agree with you because I'm very much player orientated and form when I look at the matchups. And you are right. Like Brumbies are a better team than the cap is suggesting at the moment. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I did say I capped it lower. Again, not full of confidence. I just. Yeah, not confident, but yeah, I get why you would be on the Brumbies as well. I mean, they come with a great victory, right? And who's to say that they don't kick on? I think I'm also just because also that Reds game is spooking me in a way, but Reds aren't the Tars, obviously. But I do look at the derbies in my outlooks, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to find a kind of equivalent team, like as an analogy, and it's hard because it's not necessarily like for like. But if this was Brumbies, Highlanders, and Camera, you'd probably look at it and go, yeah, I could see the Brumbies kind of running away with that one. Like, and yet, but I'm not sure that I don't think the Waratahs are as good as the Highlanders. So, you know, like, and that's what I mean about, like, you know, you stick a different colored jersey on a team and then ask yourself the question. And I think, you know, that's, it shows you what's possibly driving this lower than what in my opinion, it should be.
Yeah, and when we go around the houses and we go to the whole put the gun against the head, I'll be on the Brumbies minus. Like if it had to come all the down to my life, if I was gonna have to choose one, I would be on the Brumbies, yeah, for sure. But I still think the Waratahs will get up for it. I think they're gonna ball. I think one of my points, I think they might contribute. So I might be putting Waratahs like 14 points in an out somewhere. That's where I'm thinking at the moment, and not attacking the cap itself. Should we? So Brent is not going to come back, I think, for Super Rugby, Nathan. So I think let's just you and I can carry on with Super Rugby. Canes Reds. This is interesting. Looking at where I capped this a bit higher, so I'm very interested to see what you think. Because for me, this I was all in on Canes 2 weeks ago, and I got completely burnt. And then the Canes performance I backed 2 weeks ago happened last week. So what's happening? Yeah, I mean, I love that team. I mean, they're looking good. I think I capped it a bit higher. That's what I'm trying to get to. I had a few points higher. I think I had about 17. I know Reds are nuggety and have a good team, but I like I'm gonna double down on the Canes. I like the Canes side. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I came into this week like expecting to or thinking that I'd probably end up backing the Reds. And as it turns out, I've kind of gone the other way. Now that I've seen the teams and run some numbers, and it's an interesting one because I'd say that this week in general is not my favorite week because it's got a lot of big favorites, and I don't necessarily like to back the big favorites, like for sort of structural reasons that I think, you know, they're often overpriced. But I, to be honest, I just can't get past the Canes here. Like, you know, I think that it should be probably 17. Around about that kind of line. I know that seems a bit disrespectful to a good Reds team, and I do think that they're good, but I just I have a feeling that the Hurricanes might ultimately turn out to be the best team in the competition. And you know, to be honest, I've been looking them at sort of like at fours to win this one. So so for me, it's not, as I said, it's. I don't like necessarily backing the big minuses. It's definitely not my favorite thing to do. But at the same time, I remember reading a blog post from somebody who was talking about kind of modeling or origination, and he said sometimes the best bets are the ones where it's just what your number says. You don't have a good reason like why, but that kind of goes both ways in the sense that, like, you don't necessarily need a good reason if you have a number that you believe in, because that reason is usually a story that everybody else that's looking at this is telling themselves as well. So, you know, you don't necessarily want to be on the same side as the people telling the stories.
Yeah, well, like you say that, I mean, like straight out, I was at 17. I can even actually show you. It was 18. I think I capped this. You probably can't see. I capped it at 18. So 18 is where I had it. But I always also give a leeway when I do capping. I also bring it, if I feel I'm going a bit crazy, I might bring it in as well. But I believe Canes are like going to win by 20 points here. Like bring the points in. Yeah, I just think when you look at that team, I mean, yeah, Reds have had their performances, but we've seen this also a lot before in Super Rugby. You know, when the Aussie teams do well and in Australia, then they come to New Zealand, and if Hurricanes arrive, it's no good overs, good overs. You know, and
yeah.
So,
there's also I was going to say there's also Admirals coming off a trip to Fiji trend as well. So that has actually not come to fruition in the other two occasions so far this season. So obviously the Hurricanes went to Fiji and came back and humped the Waratahs, and then what was the other team? We had the Brumbies, who obviously went to Fiji, lost, came back, and then beat the Chiefs. So it hasn't played out this year, but let's assume that there is still something to that. I think what I had in the back of my head is that teams, when they go to Fiji, they often rotate a little bit, and then obviously rotate back on the return trip, presumably because they know that it takes a physical toll, like playing in those conditions in Fiji. But that's not what the Reds have done here. That they've rolled out almost the same team, and to me that's like a slight kind of red flag. You'd probably almost prefer to see a little bit of red rotation, but they've kind of just rolled out the same guys who played in those Fiji conditions, which I'm sure is not ideal.
Yeah. Also, like sort of like rugby and teams and matchups, and you just feel that the Canes are just going to get loads of space. Like even Roygaard, like you talked about a player, how much they're worth to a team. Roygaard to the Canes at this level is ridiculous. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, you just feel that, against this, what's this? I think it's even the third choice Reds 10 at the moment. If you go down who's injured, I just think
McLaughlin Phillips. Yeah, so I'm sure they would have wanted Carter Gordon or Tom Liner ahead of him, but
but that's what I'm saying. I just think they might have a lot of space on Saturday and have a good time, so that's why I think it might be a long day for the Reds. Should we move on to the next game? We got Blues and Drua. Another high cap, as we say. So generally, me, strategic as a bet. I don't know about you, Nathan, but I hardly ever go past the double-digit minus unless I'm really, really confident that it's a massive mismatch, because the cap backdoor covers for me, two different halves have caught me out so many times, and that's why I prefer the points. I'm a more points punter myself, but minus 21, Blues at home. Some changes for the Blues, but what are you thinking? I mean, I myself would never back the Drua in this spot, but what are you thinking?
No, I don't think the Drua are backable in this spot. Like I think it should probably be around 25, and I think the Blues have rotated a little bit. It doesn't bother me too much because I think the kind of the core or the spine of the team is still there, and I think that the players that will probably ultimately end up doing the damage are there as well. And I don't necessarily think that I'm not a Finlay Christie hater, but I don't think that replacing him with Funaki or rotating Funaki into the starting lineup is a bad thing, because Funaki he actually looks pretty good. Like I think he's got a bit of a future there. So this is just a spot that the Drua traditionally have not played well in. If you're going to play them away, you want it to be a night game for a start, which is just like something that they don't seem to enjoy. I mean, it's not like it's going to be terrible conditions, but they underperform at night, obviously underperform away. I don't necessarily, as I said, think the Blues, a little bit of rotation is a bad thing, but for the Drua, it's kind of the opposite, where they've played 3 tough games in a row against good teams, and got to be fair, got good results in the first 2, but they've kept the same team, almost the exact same team, and I just wonder whether a little bit of fatigue starts to set in, whether some rotation wouldn't have necessarily been a bad thing, because this will be the 4th kind of tough game in a row, that whether they're just starting to fade a little bit. And they've also brought in, Kemu Valentini at 10, and I definitely prefer Armstrong Ravula. So, I just wonder whether maybe that fatigue will kind of set in at some point, and the Blues might run away with us towards the end.
Yeah, I agree. Again, 2 teams that for me battle to kind of be confident on. And like I think last week I had been like, oh, trust in the Blues, and they are a good side. I think it was the last week they played the Pacifica, right, on that Sunday.
That was 2 weeks ago. So yeah, so I was at that game, and then obviously they battled a little bit in the beginning, but then covered fairly easily at the end.
Yeah.
And to be fair, that was the same last week. Like I was on the Blues last week, and like halfway through the first half, I thought I was cooked, but then whatever it was, 27 unanswered points, and and then it sort of turned into a bit of an easy cover. So Henrik talking about Funaki, so yeah, I think we're on the same page there.
Yeah, I see Hendrik mentioned about the points in the previous game at 60 saying overs, which is very rare. So I don't know if anyone caught that, if he's thinking points. But I agree. Like I think because I also think the weather said, I know bang on about weather. It's not so I wouldn't say it's as important now unless it's like squalling and rain. Like these guys are professionals now. The field conditions are pretty good. Sometimes you see a bad weather report doesn't affect the game as much as it used to. Even if I don't know if you even noticed that, but. Yeah, I agree. But yeah, Blue, I think for me, for Blues, and again, maybe I'm too emotional sometimes or sentimental about bets, but because the Blues have burned me so bloody many times on a higher cap, I know even in this spot, maybe this is the time to back them. I'm not like going all out for it, but again, posing the Drua away has served me well over the years. So when it comes down to it and I place the bet, that's often what probably would. I mean, I again, when you say gun to the head, I wouldn't be on Drua plus 20 here. So yeah, it's. I think for me, it's like I don't know. We obviously we're talking about singles here and caps, right? I mean, for people who know me now on the show for years, I'm more like alt betting and doubles and trebles, and like these are the type of games that. This type of game is where I obviously would look at alt markets in my bets and outright bets in the cap. What actually out of interest, Nathan? What do you are you a straight out cap better, or do you also change up your bets depending?
Most of the time, it would be straights. The only bet builders I tend to do is that, and I'll give you an example. Like during the Hurricanes force game, like pre-game, like I had a bet builder where I took the force on the first half handicap, so I got like a big plus number, which was like 16 or something, and then had the Hurricanes on the minus for the full time result, because I can see that the Hurricanes bench look strong, and I think in general those things don't get priced into those numbers. And as it turned out, it was a brilliant first half call, because I think they might have been leading at half call, and then ended up losing by the hook. Actually, the Hurricanes I think won by 7, and I needed them to win by 8. So that was a frustrating one. But anyway, like my point is that those are the types of bets that I'll sort of look at where there's something structural about the game that I think makes sense. Yeah, because other types of bet builders, like, I mean, I think I might have even had one last week where I looked at that I think I looked at, I mean, it would have been a loser, but I looked at Moana plus in the game under, and the odds were so bad. Like, there were two kind of, 190 prices that multiplied together would be, mid threes, high threes. And it was like low 2s, and I get that they're correlated and correlations priced in, but some of them are just the odds they give you are just garbage. So you need to be careful with that.
Yeah.
I think the Blues or the Sharks are Super Rugby. Like I think kind of tradition. I mean, they're definitely not that bad. Like the Sharks are like next level, right? Like the Sharks will just outright lose games that they have no right to. Completely untrustworthy. The Blues this season. Actually pretty trustworthy. They even when they lost against the Chiefs, they covered. They covered against the Crusaders, covered against Moana, covered last week against the Waratahs. I don't recall what the other game was, but they've actually been pretty consistently, I think, underrated by the market and have come good.
Yeah, no, they are more consistent. I agree with you. I also remember, like saying about back in teams and the Canes, like 2 weeks ago when we won the show, and I backed the Canes, if you can remember, the 40 points. And when they were like 5-12 down after like 38 minutes, it's like the word, because you know they're not getting there. You're hoping, the hope that kills, But I mean, you know, they're good enough to do it, but you know they're not going to do it on that day. And I hate that. And Blues have done that to me so many times. I'm not saying that's history. I know this Blues team seems a lot more solid for sure. But they're under Vern Cotter, right? And he's leaving, and he's a bloody good coach. I mean, he turned Scotland around for me.
He is a good coach. Yeah. I think he'd make an excellent assistant coach at international level, looking after the forwards or looking after defense or something.
I agree.
But anyway, no.
Okay, last game forced the Chiefs. I don't know what you think here, Nathan. I mean, I am expecting the Chiefs bounce back. I'm going to back that. I actually think Chiefs are going to go well in this game. But I saw the weather report. It looks like it's hammering down with rain. And if that's the case, I'm not going to be betting it. I don't know if you've seen the weather report, but this is a spot that I think the Chiefs will actually put the Force away quite comfortably. But what are you thinking?
I think the opposite, actually. Okay. And I said that there's been all these big minuses that I don't love betting. But I've got the reverse here, like I've got the big plus on a home team coming off the bye. So I think some narrative driven stuff and like one of them is the thing you alluded to, which is like bounce back spot for the Chiefs. Yep, I can kind of understand that, but at the same time, I don't know how many points that's really worth. Whereas you've got the travel factor to Perth, you've got, as I said, the force coming off a bye. They're basically at full strength. I said this last week that I just had suspicions about how good the Chiefs really were, and to be fair, like I didn't even back my own numbers. Like sometimes you kind of overthink things, but I actually had the Brumbies winning and I couldn't get myself to actually put money on it. So I had mixed feelings, like where I'm always kind of happy where like my numbers are good. But then at the same time, I didn't make any money out of it. So, like that was kind of slightly frustrating, but it did tell me something that, I think I've got a fairly good handle on how good the Chiefs actually are. And I do think that they're perhaps not as good as they're made out to be. Whereas the Force, like if you looked at where they are on the table, there's nothing flash about it at all, but I think they've been better than perhaps what their record suggests. Like I think they've been, other than the first game, and you can only take so much away from one game, especially when it's the first game of the season, where they got sort of humped by the Brumbies, and in some ways that loss has probably aged pretty well. But they've been in a lot of games. They were in it against the Blues. They should have covered. Like if Donaldson could have kicked a goal from in front. Stayed in the fight against the Hurricanes. I think from memory, they might have even been leading at halftime. They were leading at halftime against the Highlanders by a reasonable amount. Should probably have gone on to win that game, to be fair. And I think we'd be talking completely differently about the Force if some of these results had gone a different way, like if they'd beaten the Highlanders, for example. So yeah, I think the Force are better than advertised. I think they've got a good team, and I just think, this is a 14.5, which is kind of something that I've seen kicking around in the market, like is a big number for any home team. And as I said, I just think the Force are better than advertised.
Yeah, fair enough. But I'm going to vehemently be opposing you on that one this weekend. I just do believe the Chiefs are going to be if they're focused and on it. I just think they're going to be way too good. But I hear what you've absolutely said. But I definitely wouldn't be on the Force this weekend. Like I said, I see Hendrik said the rain that I saw is supposed to be going away because it was dry. I think the Force went for a big, long day. But I mean, I totally agree. Like, but I say I'm probably too much of a sentimental, emotional punter, and backing the Forces against a Chiefs team like that is something I wouldn't do normally, unless for whatever reason I do it. But also, I want to actually ask you, because I think you are in Auckland, but you're a Chiefs fan, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And so, what do you think of Carter at 13? Has he played there before? I can't remember.
He will not for the Chiefs. Like he has. I've seen him fill in there for Bay of Plenty, but it was almost like they had a bit of a rotating cast of people filling it at 13, because Amoni Narawa was playing 13 for Bay of Plenty at stages as well. So they kind of like, I think basically what was happening at Bay of Plenty was that they had all these really good backs, and they're like, we just need to get them all out in the field. So we're just going to put people anywhere we can.
Yeah.
And there is a bit of a feeling around that as well. I'm glad you brought that up, actually, because it's another thing that I don't particularly like is seeing him there, because I think everyone would kind of acknowledge that the outside backs is going to be a big strength for the Chiefs. But when you've got inexperienced centres, like the ball doesn't get there. I mean, like Rico Ioane is a great example of that, right? Like when you have a centre that's like not a great distributor, like the guys outside him just don't touch the ball, So that's definitely not a plus for the Chiefs to have that. I think that, and the Force have got George Bridge at centre, right? So he's in the same boat, like not really a centre, but the difference is that like the wingers scoring tries is not a big part of the Force game plan, So it's not a big negative for them. They will want to. They'll want to maul and try and score tries that way, and they'll want to kick goals, to Donaldson to kick goals. So I just think it's Narawa might be a weapon, like I see there in the comments, but like it's no good if he doesn't touch the ball. So I think that's the other danger here.
I know we're going off topic, but because you are you guys, I know you might need to leave, but what are your thoughts on Rennie being the new coach, and what are your thoughts for the All Blacks this year? What in terms of selections, like Rico, he's been in there for 10 years. Like who do you see? Like for me, like the center combination is been an issue for them. Like how do you see the All Blacks going under Rennie?
Yeah, I think they'll go well. I think they'll go better. I think they'll be a more settled camp. Rennie's already come out and said that he's going to pick guys on form, and there was like a string of players who were asked about it, like in press conferences after the announcement, and they were all like kind of like, I think we're all kind of on notice that we have to play well to get in the team, and that can, in my mind, can only be a good thing. Like you can't just sort of coast along and just keep getting picked. And he deliberately sort of said that he hasn't coached any of these guys, like, because when he was at the Chiefs, like, in the early sort of 2010s, like none of these guys were here. Like, so he doesn't know them personally. He said doesn't have any favorites. He's just going to pick the guys that are playing well, and I guess that, fit the way he wants to play. So, no favorites. Even someone like Cody Taylor, in his press conference was kind of saying, like I noted what he said. I've got to play well, and that's good. That's what you want.
And as an All Black fan, like, do you think where you are now with the change, is it better, or do you think this is the right thing that happened?
I think it kind of has to be. Like, I mean, I think there'll be like loads of opinions from people out there, including myself, who none of us are there. The one thing that you can guarantee is that things must have been bad for them to have done this, because it's not something that you would have done otherwise. Like, nobody wanted this. It's very disruptive. Like, so it can only be a positive in my mind, because the alternative must have been so bad that they had to do something, because they wouldn't have wanted to do anything if they didn't have to, right? So whether you think that Robertson was good or bad, or you think Rennie's good or bad, it can only be a net positive in my mind.
Yeah, I agree. I think he probably lost. I mean, we don't know, but he probably lost the change room, possibly, right? I think that's probably what happened. Otherwise, there'd be no kind of reason. Even if you look at his record, I mean, he still had a good, strike rate as an All Black coach, but he obviously wasn't something right there. But Rennie, as a South African, as a Springbok fan, I'm nervous about Rennie, because he's a no-nonsense, knows his shit. So don't get him demonetized there, Brenty. But I think.
Don't worry, I don't monetize. I mean, I'm putting my 2 cents in there. I think that I thought Rennie should have stayed on as Australia coach. I couldn't believe they got rid of him when they did after the year-end tour that he had. So I really rate Rennie a lot. I just think, and I agree with Nathan. I never thought of it that way, but it must have been bad for them to go to the sort of almost the trouble and the effort of sacking someone and bringing someone else in at the time they did. Then they obviously clearly felt there was no alternative. So I tend to agree they will improve. I think the whole thing with World Rugby at the moment, and I think this is probably hardest on New Zealand than anyone else, is that the game is just so much more competitive than it was years ago. I mean, you could argue, okay, South Africa have done really well now. We tend to, you could say we've dominated in a way, but we still lost a lot of tests. We lost to Australia at Ellis Park. We lost to New Zealand at Eden Park. The days of a team absolutely dominating World Rugby like New Zealand did in the past, and I'm talking about like 2011, 15 and that sort of stuff, I think they're gone now. I mean, Italy can beat almost anyone on their day, and I reckon that it's difficult for New Zealand fans to accept that because they were so dominant. As a country, as a nation, you expect the new coach to come in and be that dominant. And I think the first thing that's got to happen is they've got to say, I mean, I'm not saying any one of 5 or 6 teams could win the World Cup, and New Zealand might well be one of those. But the days of them going in, or anybody going in as absolutely massive favourites, are probably gone. So I do think Rennie is, if anyone can get them there, it can be Rennie. But at the same time, I just feel the World Rugby has become so competitive, and I think there's perhaps the pressure on the New Zealand coach is probably more than on any other coach in the world, because people will always talk about that golden era before. What you think about that? But that's kind of my feel, is just that whoever comes in, he either wins the World Cup or he's a failure, basically.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, there's huge amounts of expectation. I think people are getting a little bit more realistic about it, but it's, in my mind, it's only good for World Rugby that things are so competitive.
Oh no, brilliant! Agreed.
It's like, it makes for like a better product, a more compelling kind of product. Like, no one wants like a World Cup or a showpiece event where there's only 2 teams that can win it. Like it's boring. You play a bunch of games that don't matter, and then you get to the final kind of thing. It's like, it'd be like the Rugby League World Cup. Like, it's just an absolute joke. Like, it's just pointless. But but I mean, like, I think the poster child for this is kind of Argentina. Like, I don't think anybody will want to play them, like, coming around to World Cup time, because, they're just capable on the day of beating anybody. And it wasn't that long ago that, they were considered whipping boys as well. I remember, back in the 90s, the All Blacks putting 100 points on Argentina, like at in Wellington, but now it's like, Argentina can go anywhere and win against anybody.
No, 100%. And I agree with you. I think it's great ultimately it's great for the world game. And even the last World Cup, South Africa won the World Cup 3 games by 1 point each. That's not dominating. That's, that's showing big match temperament and winning the key games. But yeah, it's going to be great. And we talk about that, Chris. It's only another year to go, or a year and a bit to go till the World Cup. Seems like just the other day, but it's actually coming up quite quickly.
International rugby, and it's so small margins. We go on about the end result, but it comes down to kicks and referee decision. It really does. Like, literally, it does. Like, one hand the other way against England in the semi-final, we're not double champions. Mwanga gets a kick, at least one kick. New Zealand or Geordie, they're the champions, right? And there's a whole different narrative that we're sitting here today with.
Yep.
No,
it's fine. It's all about the trophy, and we got the trophy, so we.
But anyway, hey Chris, we better talk a bit of URC. But Nathan, thanks a lot, man. I don't know what I don't even want to say it, but my Wi-Fi seems fine, so I don't know what the issue was. But I enjoyed listening to the show when it did settle. And Nathan, good to chat to you, man. Enjoy your weekend. You going to watch any rugby or anything like that?
No, I've been to watch kind of live sport last 3 weekends in a row, including a couple of Super Rugby games, but not this weekend. But I'm going down to Christchurch for the Super Round, so that's going to be interesting because it's
nice.
A brand new stadium, and we can roll out our old debate about points totals at neutral grounds and all this kind of stuff that we used to do about Melbourne. So that'll be a good discussion.
Excellent, Nathan. Thanks very much, man. Good to have you on.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks a lot. Have a good weekend. Well, Chris, I'm quite relieved. It seems like my Wi-Fi settled before just the two of us.
Yeah, it's good now.
Thank goodness. I know you were sort of touch and go to come on tonight, but thank goodness you did, because I don't think it would have gone very well with me not being able to hear Nathan there. But let's talk a little bit of I've got the handicap.
Yeah, like we said,
a little bit of URC.
Bloody URC. Yeah.
Look, I must say, you could argue, and there's all sorts of arguments that URC is better for South Africa or whatever than, say, for argument's sake, Super Rugby and that. And I still enjoy watching it, but I must say I am battling. I'm battling to get an interest in every URC game, if I can put it that way.
Yeah,
I'm kind of like, I look at the fixtures, and I really just tend to, and I never used to be like this, but I tend to just focus on the South African teams mainly. I'm just not that excited to watch Zebra Ulster, for example.
But I think it's just tomorrow. You're tuning in.
Sorry, which one?
Leinster Scarlets, for instance. Will you tune in and watch the whole game on a Friday night?
On a Friday night, you know what? In the past, I definitely.
Well, it's not Hurricanes versus Sharks.
Definitely would have. I probably won't. In fact, I think I'm going to be out tomorrow night as well. But yeah, in the past, I would have just. I've always liked watching Leinster play on that. But I don't know what it is. I can't. And maybe it's not URC. Maybe it's I would say rugby in general, except I love the Six Nations and that sort of stuff. Yeah. I perhaps need a break for a month or two. And the problem with rugby these days, you don't get a break because there's no off season,
Yeah, before I get attacked by the Irish fans, I love Leinster. Brilliant organization. That's not my point. But it's like, my point is, back in the day, 7-8 years ago, on a Friday night, you would get a Bulls versus Highlanders on a Friday night, and you would get like a Leinster versus Scarlets. There was no way any of South Africans are paying attention to that game, right? I didn't. In the old competition that they used to be in. I mean, obviously, because we're in it now, there's more interest. But I've been saying this for ages about where we are. And I don't know what you think, like Brent. Like, it's just too much rugby. I mean, it's for our national team probably been beneficial, but like, there's just too much rugby. European, the competitions, team changes. How do you get Oaks motivated 45 weeks a year and all of them together, when in the old days it was a 10-week, 10-round competition, full strength sides except for injuries. The max do you remember in Super Rugby, the max you would see is like maybe 3 changes, 2 for injury, 1 because strategic, right? But through the whole season, you would see the same teams rolled out, and you would get form lines. And motivation was there, like, fighting for the. I find it difficult. I mean, I still love my rugby and I watch it, but yeah, tracking form lines in today's rugby world.
You're sounding like grumpy old men now, eh?
Yeah, sorry. Hey, yeah.
And talking of soccer and talking of Ireland, there's a reason why we haven't got our Irish viewers in tonight. I think they're all in the
the
big game for Ireland. Yes. I think they play Czechoslovakia in the World Cup, the playoffs. So I reckon every Irish viewer of this, and I'm thinking of Mark Dunphy. Well, I know Mark hasn't been well, so he's probably not at a pub, but I'm sure watching the soccer. The Admiral and all of the rest of them are probably all in a pub. Fareed, of course, makes a comment that too much rugby is great. And Fareed, let me tell you, yes, when you're betting and things are going well, or you're just enjoying your betting, there's no such thing as too much rugby. I have to agree with you. I'm just at that stage at the moment, and I never ever thought I'd get there where I'm just not feeling 12 games a weekend. I'm happy to just watch 1 or 2. Anyway, Chris, we better get in. We better get into the URC.
I disagree. I want to get into a game that means something. Too much rugby is too much.
It's like T20 cricket.
All sports.
It's T20 cricket and that. It's just
yeah. Do you remember? Like, that's the thing, as sports fans and pundits. Remember in the 90s and the 2000s, you would get yourself up every week and weekend to watch Champions League, Premiership. You would be engaged because almost every game meant almost something, right? Now it's too much.
Yeah.
No? Anyway.
You and I.
Sorry, Brent. I'm grumpy.
No, that's fine. I think also there might. I also sometimes think my Wi-Fi is not quite 100%. Wait, I want to see what Henrik says. I haven't read it yet. Brent, respectively, isn't it just us getting older as well, and we watch less rugby that you don't get that excited? Yeah, I think you're right, Henrik. I think it's got a lot to do with that. And yeah, it's strange. It's difficult to say for me because it's always been I used to watch 7 Super Rugby games like back to back, or 7. I used to watch 3 or 4 on a Saturday morning, and then I used to watch whatever it was, Curry Cup or whatever in the afternoon. So it's quite strange now that I'm not feeling that hunger to watch. But one game I am looking quite forward to, Chris, and I'm hoping it will be on the screens tomorrow in the place that I'm going, is the Sharks against Cardiff. Sharks minus 19.5. They played Munster, under-strength Munster last week. I mean, the points line was 45.5, and the Sharks delivered 45 points on their own. But unfortunately for any overs backers, Munster didn't deliver any points. Minus 19.5 against Cardiff. And, we got a point on here of 48.5.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, in the last probably few seasons before now, this was a very scary game to... you probably went in quite confident, right? Yeah, Sharks, Cardiff at home. Yeah, but you remember like 3 years, Cardiff won by 30 points.
35.
Yeah. But the thing is, I know the Sharks have been the Sharks, but I think what I've seen, this is a personal opinion, Sharks team selection has been very important. Like the 9, 10, 12 axis for me was always an issue for them, and they've got quality there now. Coaching was obviously also a problem. Looks like JP Peterson is the right person right now. And some people won't like this, but maybe even the Galacticos, the Khaleesi's and It's the Best and Sharks probably wasn't a good thing for them. I think probably players are probably got into their shells, and I think Sharks, like the Lions, we'll get to the Lions and even Bulls, are looking a bit different now compared to this time last year. They were completely different, and and I'm like, when you talk about punting, we all have our own strategies. That's the whole thing, right? Whether we back them or not, I prefer to back quality over the underdog, where other people would like to find value in the underdog. And for me, Sharks team selection is so important. And, with Hendrickse and Esterhazen and Hooker, those are quality players and things, whole different ball game to back the back quality that are up for the game. I mean, they showed it last week. I mean, obviously, I don't know much about Munster, generally. Munster have given the Sharks good games previously. But for me, the Sharks and the Lions and all the South African teams would have a little bit more something in them. Carter, I mean, let's lay this down, right? The Bulls beat them by 40 points last week. Are the Sharks 1 or 2 points better than the Bulls if you think about it, at home with a good side? This is the Sharks. Normally this is back in the Sharks, right? You would think with the team they have, the way they've been playing, and these teams have brought not their full strength side. So, like I said, I naturally don't like to back massive minuses, but if you're going to talk about the cap, I would lean to the Sharks. But obviously, the last 4 or 5 years we've been burned bad by the Sharks. But if I look at the side, and as I say, team selection is important, I think the Sharks still have the goods to deliver. But I'll say Sharks minus, but it won't be very confident. I don't know what you think, Brent.
Yeah, I must say, no firm views on this one. I was also leaning a little bit towards the Sharks, more on the basis that, to me, Cardiff just looks so bad, or they looked so bad last week. I'm assuming they get maybe a couple of players back or something like that. But I am looking at the points line here, Chris. 48.5 in Durban on a Friday night. I see there is some potential storms and rain forecast around there. So if anything I'm going to do on this game, I'll probably be going unders. And in fact, I see Henrik came in and he says Sharks unders for him there. So that's kind of more what I would be leaning. What are we looking at there? 19.5. So
but you're right.
At Sharks
Friday night. Yeah, I agree. I think Sharks will win. There won't be another mess up like there was a couple of years ago. But I totally agree. Could all easily be like a 31-5 result. You need to, obviously, I don't know how you cap or whatever, but I always I go to what I think the result will be, and then I start working backwards on that. When I think of a result, I think Durban Friday night, Sharks won comfortably last week. I'm big on I keep saying the 19 access. Williams is injured. Who's that? I can't think. Norton is the scrum half. Scrum half is so important. They're generals, right? that 8, 9, 10 access is important. And Sharks don't have
Bradley Davids. I've got you on the team list. Bradley Davids.
Well, I think he's reserve, and I think it's Norton who's the starter. But anyway,
I haven't actually looked at it. I might have picked up an old list, or maybe it's a new list, and the one guy's been injured. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
but anyway, I'll say the unders there. Let's see if anyone in the live chat can confirm. Fareed reckons the Bulls have softened up Cardiff for a bit of a demolition there, and it's Bradley David starting at 9, says the wager Warlock. But for me, Chris, it's okay. I kind of knew neither player, so it wouldn't have made a big difference.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Obviously,
right?
with Williams being out,
yeah. But scrum off is an important position in rugby, like it is, right? Like
yeah. I
have a rule. If I have a 9, 10, or 12 that's on debut, I don't back that team. I don't do it, because what I've seen over 20 years of watching rugby, that team does not go out and fire. That's my view.
Yeah, they potentially, you might potentially get just a star who comes out and really, but I would agree with you. I'd say more often than not, the better option is not to back. Let's move on to the next game, Chris. Friday night, it's the one you're asking me if I'm going to be watching. There has been money here for Leinster. The early cap that I saw was minus 21.5. It's come out to 26.5 against the Scarlets, and we've got a points line here of 53.5.
I'm on Leinster. Yeah, this is a massive bounce back spot. I know most men not a bigger believer as I am, but they've got some big guns back. Good weather in Dublin. I think the overs actually. I actually think Leinster are going to probably get about 45 points. Scarlet's 12. I think the overs are definitely, for me, my most confident play. The minus 26, not as confident, but I think Leinster are going to do well here. So I'm going to go more on the over 53.
Over 53. Henrik is looking at Scarlet's unders there, which if you had to combine your two bets, then you would say, okay, the safest then is the Leinster handicap, because that way you could get the Scarlet's unders and probably the Leinster.
I think Leinster are going to be good. I think Leinster are going to do well tomorrow. Whatever you want to back on that, I think Leinster are going to have a big performance.
I do like that call of yours on the Scarlet's unders there, Henrik. I expect Leinster to be tight on defence. And this game's taking place at the same time, Chris. Glasgow, of course, beat Leinster last week, minus 19.5 against Benetton, and here we got a points line of 50.5.
Yeah. Again, team sheets like Glasgow didn't have all their main guns last week. They've got Tupelotti and New Jones back. I mean, I do like opposing Italian teams away. Obviously, again, like we've been saying this whole, Nathan said, these big minuses are not my strategy, even though probably they could be beaten. But I think actually the over 50 is probably, again, it's probably more about my play. I think, Benetton could probably contribute to it. So 50 is a bit low for me. I actually like over 50 more than the cap.
Chris, just to warn you, my wife and I just started playing up again, so you disappeared for a while, but I knew you was talking because you'd only just started. But if you stop talking and I don't say anything, then by all means, move on to the next game and start talking about that.
No worries.
I could be in trouble. But let's move on to Saturday's action. The Bulls, I don't have points lines here because we don't have teams yet certainly for most of these teams. Bulls minus 13.5 against Munster. I see it has been backed a bit from minus 11.5 early in the week. I'm imagining Munster, though, will field a stronger team on Saturday, and this is just, I know that they did travel over with I think the Ireland players were in the squad. So I imagine Munster would be a bit stronger. But what do you think here? The Bulls are in quite rampant form at the moment. That Stormers lost aside.
Yeah, well, I don't know about the team. Honestly, Brent, I wish I did know more about the team selections, about these overseas teams bringing in their overseas players. I don't actually know, to be honest, because if they haven't, obviously backing South African teams this weekend is most definitely the way to go, right? So I'll be very honest, I don't actually know. if these teams have brought back their internationals. I thought so. I can't comment.
No, and they have a name there.
Yeah. If I will say this: if all these teams are the same teams as last week, I will be back in the South African teams again. I see repeats of last weekend. I don't see why any of these South African teams or like there will be different, whatever you want to call it, like the way the games are going to play out. I think they came with weaker teams. South Africans are looking good and motivated. If there are, let's put a caveat to this. If it's the same teams as last week, I'll be on the Bulls minus here again. I don't see any other reason why you wouldn't want to back the Bulls there. Last year and the 2 years before, I would have been Bulls as well. I've been like, Bulls -4 against Munster. But I think Bulls under Ackerman, they have turned a corner, in my opinion. And I think they are a different side, as are the Lions, as are the Sharks. Stormers are the Stormers. You never know what you're going to get. You know what I mean, right? But if so, the caveat. My thing is, if it's the same Munster team as last week, Bulls. If they bring him back internationals, not as confident.
No, fair enough. And I think the fact that the handicap even is where it is suggests that Munster will be bringing back some players, because after last week you'd expect even a bigger handicap on the Bulls. But it'll be interesting to see. I am leaning towards, though, a high-scoring game there. I am going to check conditions. There's been quite a bit of rain up here in the week, but I do think even Munster points, they battled. Well, they did. They were pretty toothless last week, but I think they could make at least this could be one of those games where the Bulls win big but still concede 4 tries. I could see that happening.
But they've been doing for the last 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. Let's move on. Connacht against Ospreys. I've got no opinion on this, Chris, and you?
No, generally I'm a Connacht backer at home. I've always have been. I haven't been on good form lately, but I was on the plus last week. Connacht at home against Ospreys. No, I think they cover this. That's actually very quite blind. I think Connacht will actually cover this cap quite comfortably.
Right, Connacht on the minus there. That takes us to another game featuring South African team as Lions up against the Dragons, -19.5. The Lions, who were very impressive last week in putting Edinburgh away. The Dragons actually ran the Stormers pretty close in the end when you consider they were 29-point underdogs in that game down in Cape Town. What are you doing here? Or what's your gut? I know you want to wait for teams, and so would I in this particular case. But what's your gut feel? I'm thinking the Lions can continue riding this wave.
Yes, I agree, because I think if you look at the log as well, right? If the Lions win this and Munster lose against Bulls and everyone else at the top of the log, Lions will go quite high up the log. Why would they not want to put the pressure on the pedal now, right? So I agree. Dragons, respect to Welsh Dragons people who might watch this. I agree. If the Lions previous obviously have been a big letdown in general, but last week was quite impressive, and actually where they've been going the last couple of weeks is impressive. I agree. I think the Lions should be how they performed last week should be putting the Dragons away. They should be. If you want to go
Chris,
back.
You want to talk about the Lions being impressive and talk about signs. I was asking for signs last week. Should I take like a break from betting? I just haven't been into. So I was on the
Lions
unders.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, the Lions. So here's the story. I'm sitting on a Saturday morning, looking out my window, which looks towards the stadium, although it's a good 17 kilometers away. Absolutely pouring with rain. Pouring with rain. So it cleared up, then it poured with rain. So I thought unders was the play. So I go there anyway. The game starts quickly. The sun's out, shining. I called the people I told was raining must have thought I was at. The sun's out. The game starts quickly. 28 points in like the first 24 minutes or something. Then the game slows down, and I just start thinking if I can get to halftime with only 28 points, I have a feeling this bet is in a runner. And the Lions, down to 14 men, win a penalty after the hooter, like on their own line. Like that is the end of the half. Without a doubt, 999 out of 1,000 times. What do the Lions do? They run it from their own line and end up scoring a try down the other side. At that point, I knew I did not even have to watch the second half. So anyway, I think this could be. This could be a if anything a Lions minus. I will be interested in the points line. I guess we're going to get somewhere around 54, 55 and a half. Yeah. I'm always a bit nervous. Loftus, I'm a much more confident overs punter. Ellis Park these days, I know it did arrive last week, obviously to my detriment, but I'm a little bit. I'm not as enthusiastic on at Ellis Park as I used to. The ground just doesn't seem to hold up that well.
You know what the problem is? I think, and Stormers, it's again without being patronising. I don't think teams take Dragons as seriously as they should. So like we all know that probably that the result should be a blowout. But I think if you think about these teams getting ready for these games, are they legitimately like getting themselves up for these games against like the Dragons? Like, just like disrespect, right? So they're just looking for the win. They know they're gonna win, but they're not looking to fight to like go crazy about it. They're just doing the job. That's the problem with these type of teams. Also South African teams. I think again, I'm South African, like we are. I think sometimes we think we're much better than we think we are. We're a bit arrogant and we underestimate teams. And I think a situation like this is an example, like the Stormers last week. Like if the Dragons arrive and put a game up for it, it's going to be a 10-point difference at the end of the day.
Well, I was bringing up some old comments here because the way my screen is, I somehow had the comments out of like I couldn't see that there were new comments, and I missed a whole lot. So I brought it up there. But I see Henrik is the same as me. He likes the Munster overs, and I believe the Munster team is out. I just want to have another look at that comment. I think it was Wager Warlock who made it. Munster team is out fairly strong. I backed them to stay within the cap. So yeah, I didn't pick that up while we were chatting on that one. Let's move on then to the next game. Stormers here once again big favourites, minus 18.5 against Edinburgh. They got the win last week, Chris, but they weren't terribly impressive. Yet when they went to Loftus, they were very impressive. So it's a little bit hard to call the Stormers team at the moment. At least that's my impression.
Yeah, well, that was the only game 2 weeks ago that I got right on this bloody show. As the Stormers plus. Because I think probably I think most people that I saw, and even I didn't bet on Sunday, but you would have backed the Stormers to have covered a cap, or at least the old cap. But again, like you said, in terms of watching rugby, again, I'm going to use this is like a type of game the Stormers will come back around and probably put Edinburgh away by a big margin. That's just me watching the Stormers for 20 years. It's not saying that will happen, but I'm going to say that the Stormers will cover the cap. I just noticed, I'm a Stormers fan. I've watched them every game for a long, long time. And again, I don't know if Edinburgh brought back the internationals. So that's a caveat. So if it's the same teams as last week, then the Stormers are going to win they're going to cover this. But I don't know that the team sheets.
I imagine Edinburgh will have a couple of players back, so it'll be interesting to see. Henrik likes Edinburgh in some way, and I guess what Henrik's saying there is he'll either be on this Edinburgh handicap, the Stormers unders, or perhaps the Edinburgh overs. As he says there, he's not 100% sure which angle he's going to back them at. Right, let's go on to the last game of the weekend, Chris. It's one that I'm not particularly keen on. Zebra plus 10.5 against Ulster. I think I'll switch the TV off at this point and let's watch another episode or two of Landman on Saturday night. What are you going to do on this one?
No, Brent, you know me. don't even know this fixture exists. I'm not looking at it.
No, 100%. We won't chat any further about that one. And Chris, first of all, let me thank all the guys in the live chat. Sorry, I fell a little bit behind on the comments there, but always good to have your contributions. And hope it's a good punting weekend for you all. And for yourself as well, Chris, just an early question for you, and you don't have to answer me now on the show, but if it is possible for you to host next week, I'd appreciate it. I'm going to actually be away, so it's going to be pretty difficult. So see how you're going. See how you're going next week. And if I do see everyone next week, it'll be as a guest, not as a guest, as a watcher of the show. But Chris, have a good weekend. What have you got planned for the weekend?
Yeah, not much. I've just joined the golf course down the road. Yeah, so I want to get back into golf this summer in Europe, in England. So yeah, go hit some balls and hopefully get a game in. And that's and watch a bit of rugby. I have such bad connectivity here, which how I watch my rugby, so it's driving me insane that I have to keep refreshing and buffering and all that. But yeah, no, all good. Good. Yeah. Gonna.
Farid, we'll give Farid the final say there. He's going off to make some money on the Pro D2. I can't say I've got involved in that myself. Chris, thanks very much, man. Good to have you on the show. And yeah, we'll chat to you again soon.
Yeah. Cheers, guys.